Here are 8 more easy beginner skateboard tricks. Up first, we're starting extremely easy with seesawing up the curb. If you're new to skateboarding and you don't quite have olling up curbs down yet, this is probably going to be the quickest and easiest way for you to get up them. For this one, all that's really happening is as you're rolling towards a curb, you lift your front wheels up and over, and once they're on top, you press down on your nose to lift your back wheels up. There really isn't too much to this one, but a few things to take note of. When you set your feet up, you want to have them spread apart on the outer edges of your bolts. And what you probably shouldn't do is have them spread all the way on the ends of your nose and tail, because that's going to be a bit harder to control. Basically, you just want to make sure that they're far enough out where you can still lift up the nose and the tail. From there, just get comfortable going down to your tail, and then to your nose. And then you can start practicing on a curb, just one side at a time. So just roll towards it and lift your nose up onto it. And when you're comfortable with that, you can practice just having your nose already on the curb, and then trying to press down and lift your tail up. You can also practice an easier version of this, just on flat and rolling over something. This should help you get the basic feeling of it before taking it to a curb. And then finally, once you're ready, have your feet in that position, roll towards a curb, and once you get to it, press down on your back foot to lift your nose up. And once your nose is on top, switch your weight to your front foot and bring the back wheels up. At number 2, we have another really easy one, which is rolling off the top of the curb into stalls. So this one isn't just one trick, it's multiple variations, but it's all using the same concept of rolling off the edge of a curb, but before you go off the end, you go into a stall. This is one that's technically really easy to do, but it should help build board control and confidence. The only thing you may want to practice for this one is doing the trick on flat, which basically means you roll and then stop like you're in a stall, turning your board and either putting your nose or your tail down or whatever you want to do, and then quickly turning out of it. And then you just take the same concept, but you roll towards the edge of a curb from the top, and then as you come to the end, whip your board around into whatever stall you want, making sure that your trucks are on the edge of the curb, and then turn back and drop down. The easiest version of this is probably just rolling straight off into a tail stall, but you can also try 50-50s, 5-0s, nose stalls, or whatever you feel most comfortable with. For number 3, we have the tail drop shove it. So a long time ago in a previous video, I showed you how to do a tail drop, aka a power ollie. Well, this is basically the same thing, except you're doing a shove it out of it instead of just an ollie. So step 1 is just to make sure you have your tail drops down. And you're also going to want to have your shove-its on flat down too. And we're just going to be trying to combine these. So the first step is to set up your tail on the edge of a curb. And something I found that really helps is when you set up your board, don't put your wheels all the way against the curb, but rather pull it out an inch or two, and this will make it easier for the board to rotate without hitting the curb. Now, a couple things I should point out are, when you're going to actually try this trick, it's the same concept as a regular shove-it, in that your back foot is doing most of the work, and when you pop, it's pulling back on the tail in order to get the board to rotate. And the other thing is, unlike on flat, there's going to be some space between your front wheels and the ground, so you're going to have to dip your nose ever so slightly before popping. The only other thing to look out for is that you're kind of jumping forward with the board so you don't land back on the curb, and then everything else just works like a regular shove-it. For trick number 4, we have the bean plant. So this trick is pretty similar to the boneless, which I've also taught in the past, but I think this one's just slightly harder. This one is the same concept as a boneless, except you're using your front hand rather than your back. So as you're rolling, you simultaneously take your front foot off, reach down with your front hand and grab the nose, and then jump into the air with the board and land back on it. The main thing you want to watch out for in this one is your foot positioning. Your front foot should be in a place fairly far up the board where it can easily slide off the edge. And the important thing is your back foot. You don't want it all the way on the tail, because that way when you slide your front foot off, the nose is going to automatically pop up. You want to move it down a little bit more towards the bolts, so when you step off with your front foot, you still have something stable to stand on. After that, you just lean down and grab the side of the nose with your front hand, and then simultaneously lift up the board with your hand and jump off your front foot, and then land back on the board. The timing on this one can be a little weird for beginners, but luckily you can take this one really slow. Just practice while standing still or going really slow, and you can do each part individually. And once you're comfortable, you can start to speed it up and try and make the transition between parts more seamless. For trick number 5, we have the Fakie finger shove it. For this one, you're rolling Fakie on your board, and then you bend down and grab the nose with your hand. And at the same time, you do a little hop and swing the board around with your hand like a shove it. This one can seem pretty challenging at first, but once you get it down, it's not too bad. And an optional trick that you can learn before this one are Fakie shove-its, because it's a pretty similar feeling of riding Fakie and then having the board rotate underneath you. So you're going to set your feet up like you would for a normal Fakie shove-it, and then practice squatting down and grabbing the nose with your hand. This can feel kind of awkward at first, and you can also just practice what it's going to feel like to swing the board around with your hand. And now the main thing to this trick is timing. It can be easy to accidentally try and pull up the nose too soon, and then you kind of just look weird. So the key to this is hopping off the board and swinging it around in the right timing, and also slightly using your back foot to give the tail a little bit of a scoop when you jump off will help you shove it around too. So yeah, this one's really awkward, but it's pretty fun. At number 6, we have walk the dog. So this one's a little bit of a freestyle footwork maneuver, but you're basically getting the board to do little 180s while your front foot doesn't leave the grip tape. And it can be pretty useful if freestyle is something that you're looking to get into. So the first thing you'll probably notice is my weird foot positioning, but it does seem to really help out for this trick. So the way to set up your feet is to have your front foot in the center of the board, but angled completely towards your tail. And then you just want your back foot somewhere on the tail where you can easily press down and turn the board. So essentially the goal here is to get the board to do a backside pivot while your body stays straight and your front foot doesn't leave the grip tape. So we can start off practicing doing the motion, but with just one foot at a time. Your back foot has an easy enough motion where it just slightly presses down on the tail and scoops it around. So just get comfortable doing that. And now your front foot in that weird position is just going to stay pressing down on the board and sliding along with it. And it should pretty much stay facing the same direction the entire time. So once you understand what you're doing with your feet individually, you can slowly start to practice this just while standing still. It's going to feel really awkward at first, but once you get it around once, you can kind of feel how it works. And I should mention that in freestyle skateboarding, you'd probably be doing this over and over down the street for miles, but I'm just doing 1 or 2 here because I suck at it. So once you've sort of gotten it down, you can just do one and then pivot out of it, or you can try and do multiple, but the main thing here is trying to maintain your balance. For trick number 7, we have dropping in. Now this is one I already made an entire video about, but because these list videos seem to reach a wider audience, I thought it should be included. So dropping in is pretty much the main big thing you learn first when learning transition skating. It pretty much opens up the possibilities of a whole new way of skateboarding. Plus, it's a great way to gain confidence. So I'll leave a link to my how-to in a card and in the description. And finally, at number 8, we have something that isn't quite a real trick, but it's really fun to do, and who knows, it might help you with some of your real skateboarding. And that is sitting down tricks. So this is exactly what it sounds like, and it's just when you do tricks on your board while you're sitting down. And the reason this is fun is if you're into tech decks or handboards, this is basically the next step up. It allows you to do tricks that you probably couldn't regularly do, but also on the more practical side of things, it can be a good way to sort of visualize how a trick is going to look under your feet. So if you're having trouble with something like kickflips, go find something to sit on about knee to thigh height, throw your board down and start kicking around. The ability to keep your feet up in the air longer while the board flips beneath them is a good way to get some mental practice in. Now I will say the one downside is that your foot positioning won't be the same as when you're normally trying the trick, so it's not a direct translation, but like I mentioned earlier, it can still help with visualization. So whether you're working on something or you just want to have some fun, I would say go and try this one out. So there you have it. These were 8 more tricks in my long-running series of easy and intermediate tricks. I tried to cover a range from extremely easy to a bit more challenging, so hopefully there was at least one thing you found useful. Just remember that at the end of the day, skateboarding should always just be about fun and personal growth. As always, I'd like to thank my Patreon pledgers for being so wonderful and always supporting me. And besides that, I'd like to thank you for watching, and you can like and subscribe if you want.